Hello, I'm Bill Shoke, President and CEO of Wespay. Welcome to the Payments Perspective Podcast, where we help you to navigate your payments journey one episode at a time. We bring together industry leaders to discuss timely and relevant payments topics and explore the most important issues impacting our industry. The Payments Perspective Podcast is brought to you by Wespay, where our mission is to build and share knowledge to guide members through their payments journey, from concept to operation.
Welcome back to the Payments Perspective Podcast. My name is Jeff Duffy, Assistant Vice President of Education and Events here at Wespay. On this episode, we are going to discuss positive pay, and I'm pleased to have with us today Jamie Berg from Alkami. Welcome, Jamie, and thank you for joining us today. Would you please introduce yourself to our audience before we get started?
Absolutely. Jeff, thanks for inviting me today. Super excited to be here with all of you. So I'm Jamie Berg. I am the Director of Sales at Alkami, and I've actually been with the company for a little over 4 years. I came from a company that was acquired, which was ACH Alert, and we offer positive pay solutions. Something else to share with you that makes me a little bit more unique is I have about 25 plus years of treasury management experience, mostly all from the financial institution side.
Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So in today's rapidly changing environment that financial institutions and their customers are having to adapt to, more and more we are hearing about these potential solutions like positive pay that business customers are looking for and expect from their financial institutions. So Jamie, will you please tell our listeners what positive pay is, why it is important, and what is that problem that positive pay can solve?
Sure. Two flavors of positive pay. You've got check positive pay and ACH positive pay. And what I would say, Jeff, is that check positive pay today is almost table stakes. Businesses, municipalities, not-for-profits, they really are expecting their financial institutions to be offering these services to help protect the business and the overall entity from losses. The real big problem that it's solving for is that there are a lot of altered checks out there in the environment. There are fraudulent checks. You hear about check fraud almost nonstop as far as, what type of losses are businesses having. And, there's the blue box thefts. So in other words, businesses are mailing their checks and someone's actually stealing the actual U.S. postal blue box, or they're getting into it some way. The other thing that's happening in the industry that people don't talk about as much is that, the U.S. postal system, great system, right? But guess what they do still? They still deliver on Saturdays. And some businesses don't think about that aspect, and they don't have a secure mailbox. They might be in an industrial park. And so you have these fraudsters or thieves driving around and picking up the mail and stealing the checks and altering them. So businesses really have to think about, how do I protect myself from fraud, check fraud, thefts? Internal fraud's just as important, but again, making sure that your checks are secure is really important. And that's one of the things that check positive pay does. With check positive pay, what's happening is there's a couple different ways that it works, but payee positive pay is probably the most important product out there, because it's going to match the actual payee that's on that check that's being issued. It's going to match the dollar amount and make sure that that check is valid. So again, it's just a really important solution that businesses can't really afford not to have, and financial institutions can't afford not to offer it.
Makes sense. And I wouldn't have even thought of the Saturday delivery risk that's presented there. I know I enjoy getting my mail on the Saturdays, but putting that just creates that extra opportunity for those out to commit nefarious crimes, right?
Absolutely.
So with that, can you tell us a little bit about how positive pay works and how it prevents fraud?
Absolutely. So with check positive pay, the way that it typically works is the business customer is actually loading their issue data into the positive pay solution. So they're exporting an issue file when they do their check run into the system, and it usually contains that check number, the dollar amount, and hopefully the payee, because again, you see a lot of payees being altered. And then what will happen is when the checks are being cleared, they're coming in and the positive pay solution is matching them. So it's making sure that accounts enrolled, it's validating the check number was issued, it's making sure that check that's clearing is for the same amount that was actually on that issue file, and then it will look at the payee. If that check doesn't match, it will fail and become an exception for the business customer to review. Now, sometimes we write a manual check and we forget to put it into our issue file, or we forget to load it manually into our system. That item will become an exception, and the business customer can go in and review and say, oh yeah, I forgot to load that check. It's good, let it go. So that's important to think about. Like, you can still forget to load a check, but you still have that opportunity to review it, and it won't actually just get returned. Now, there's another flavor of positive pay that a lot of financial institutions are starting to offer, and that's reverse positive pay. It is not close to being as a strong fraud protection control, but it still is a level of control for a customer. So in other words, they don't load an issue file. They get alerted when the checks come in to clear, and they can review those particular checks and say, yeah, I wrote that check, I issued it, it's right, let it go. And for smaller businesses, it's a really good solution when they're not comfortable loading a check issue file. So when you think about check positive pay, lowest level of protection is no protection, then reverse positive pay, then the standard positive pay, and then the best would be the payee positive pay. So it's doing that payee validation also. And then of course there's ACH positive pay, also really important. So when you think about ACH positive pay, what is that? Well, ACH positive pay is saying, hey, as a vendor is coming in to debit your account or even potentially credit it, it's making sure that that vendor is on an approved list. So in other words, that company ID from that vendor matches on the authorized approved list. You can even set a dollar limit with some systems to make sure that that vendor is only debiting for a particular amount or under a certain amount, and even a frequency. Now, if that vendor is not on your approved list, it will show you it as an exception. You might say, oh, that's a new vendor of mine, add it to an approved list. So next time it will automatically be approved. But also you might have a vendor who comes in that you're not even familiar with or aware of, but they've got your account information somehow. You can actually return it so you don't lose those funds, and block that vendor going forward. So if they try to come in again, it will automatically be returned. One thing fraudsters do a lot, particularly with ACH positive pay, they try something, and if it works, they might continue to do it. Or they might wait if it's been blocked and try it again in 3 months. They don't usually go away. They usually just keep trying until they're successful. So that's something to think about with ACH positive pay. One of the things that people forget about is that we as individuals are so well protected, but guess what? Businesses aren't as protected as we are as a consumer. And because of that, when an ACH comes in, if it's a business-to-business transaction, to go through the normal channels, the customer really only has 24 to 48 hours to return that. And because of that, they're not necessarily aware. Like, education is really important. So making sure that your business customer knows that, they'll know the importance of ACH positive pay, because if they're not reviewing the items, they may not have that opportunity later on to return it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you make a great point. The fact that, things like Regulation E isn't protecting the business customer like it's protecting the consumer customers, and the CFPB is looking out for the consumer and not the business. So you and I both, and I think our listeners also can see the value right up front in these positive pay solutions. So how is it that financial institutions can educate their their business customers, and include it in their options and roll it out, and really, I guess, demonstrate the value of these positive pay solutions.
Yeah, no, a great question. So a couple things to think about, and I want to say this because I know we have a lot of financial institutions listening. Please remember, as a financial institution, you are a business too. So not only should you be rolling these solutions out to your businesses, but you should be rolling them out on your own accounts. We kind of always forget about ourselves. So just keep that in mind as we're talking about this. The bank, credit union is just at risk as much as your customers. But rolling out to your business customers, it's so important. And I think one is making sure that your business customers or municipalities, not-for-profits, understand the value that these products are very similar to insurance. We all have insurance. It's not tangible, right? We can't do anything with it, but it's really designed to be there to protect us if something happens. And that's really what positive pay does, is that if the fraudulent transaction comes in, it's going to prevent it, or it's going to allow you to review it to prevent it from actually clearing your account. And if you can get your business customers to have that state of mind, it makes it a lot easier for them to understand the value. Because the last thing we all know that a business customer wants to do is, if they've had fraud, they don't want to have to close out that account. So I think when you're explaining it to your business customers that if you put check positive pay in today and ACH positive pay in today, it's going to prevent you from having losses. And not only that, it's going to prevent you from having to close your account later on or add these services later on. And that's a big, honestly, selling point, because businesses don't want to have to close out an account, because when they have to close out an account, it's not just that they need to get new check stock, because again, check stock is just a part of it, right? Everyone who's debiting their account, they have to notify. Everybody who's wiring to them, they have to notify. Anyone who's sending a credit to their account, if they're using merchant services, they have to notify all those vendors. It's a lot of work. And the path of least resistance is really to have these services set up in advance. Because if, businesses need to realize, like, these funds are the funds of the business. So without them, the business is not going to be able to operate. And you really have that fiduciary responsibility to protect the business. And that's why you have insurance. That's why you have check and ACH positive pay. Some financial institutions will roll these services out as part of their online banking agreement, allow their business customers to opt in or opt out. So that way, at least they're getting the education of why they can have these services and the benefits, or opt not to. The other thing is, some financial institutions will say, hey, you can have these services at no cost for 3 months, and you'll find that most of them will end up keeping them. So there's a lot of different ways to try to roll this out, but making sure that your teams feel that they understand the products and the benefits is the first place to start. So that way they feel comfortable educating the customers.
Great, thank you. I think that kind of goes into my next question is, how does a financial institution really train their users? Their customers have decided, this is a valuable solution for me. I see how this would benefit me. So how does that financial institution really train their customers, provide ongoing engagement, and then continue to drive that adoption?
Yeah. No, those are really great questions and important questions. So from a training perspective, hopefully the solutions that the bank is actually offering are fairly intuitive for the business customers. I would say that, for a lot of financial institutions, it's important to be able to do a WebEx or webinar training, or go on site to do a training for your business customers. One of the biggest hurdles for adoption is actually loading that first check issue file, or hearing you've got to load an issue file. Well, guess what? Most businesses don't write checks every day. They're usually doing a check run a week. So when you sort of explain to them, the only time you have to load a file is when you do a check run, and you're probably doing it once a week, they're like, oh yeah, that's not that bad. But from a training perspective, it's maybe getting a test file from them. Maybe you're setting up the template for them, or showing them how to do it so they can load their file. I think that's where you see the hurdles or the reason people won't adopt it. It's that exercise that they have to go through. Um, but showing them how easy it is really important, and making sure that you have training videos for them, you have resources for them. Typically, check positive pay or ACH positive pay is probably less challenging than ACH origination or even setting up a wire online, to be honest with you. So I don't think that you'll find that it's a difficult product to train a customer on or show them how to utilize. It's really just that first issue file. And it's not money going out the door. So when you think about it from your wire origination or your ACH origination, people get real nervous with those because money's leaving. So I think it's real easy to train customers with check positive pay and ACH positive pay once you get them into the system. Coming from a bank that used these solutions, I would say that they were probably the solutions that we got the least amount of calls for once we got a customer up and running, because they're very intuitive and customer centric. And I think, the driving adoption, I think the biggest thing is campaigns. And I'm not talking about in their face campaigns all the time, but customer education is making sure that they understand that fraud isn't going away. Fraud continues to grow. What type of fraud is out in the marketplace? What are things that they can do to prevent it? And then letting them know the solutions that the bank has to offer. I think those are probably the most important pieces to drive adoption. And, a lot of people will offer seminars for their customers, bringing in special speakers like the FBI, Secret Service, U.S. Postal Service will come in and speak at no cost to your customers. So offering those different training opportunities and basic information that's out in the marketplace on the fact that fraud's here and it isn't going away is just really important. So that's how I would, and giving examples, by the way, what you're seeing in the market, like that human relation, like, hey, I was talking to 5 other customers like in the last 6 weeks, and this is the type of fraud that they've seen. So it's not just what the prevention, that's not good. It's not just about what preventative methods they can use, but what's going on in the marketplace so they are aware, because there are trends that we see. And keeping customers alert to those trends is so important.
Absolutely. So it sounds like not only is it demonstrating the value of it, but also educating our customers of the different, like we said at the beginning, it's an evolving environment. So it's really important to keep folks up to date on those trends that we are seeing, as well as other resources, like you said, the FBI and other local law enforcement. It sounds extremely important to just really leveraging this product or this solution to our customers as financial institutions.
Absolutely.
All right. Anything else that we should know about positive pay, Jamie?
I would say the only other thing that's really important about positive pay, if you're a financial institution and you're not offering it to your customers, you really need to add this to your suite, because at the end of the day, to be competitive in the marketplace, they really are truly table stakes. And just remember, for your business customers, it's not if they're going to have fraud, it's when they're going to have fraud, unfortunately. So being proactive is just so important.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Jamie, thank you for joining us today. And if anyone listening to this podcast would like to contact Jamie, her information will be included on the description of this show's notes. I'd also like to thank our members for listening to this episode. And if there's anyone listening today who's thinking about becoming a member of Wespay, please visit our membership page using the link that is included in the podcast description. And also remember that you can subscribe to the Payments Perspective podcast anywhere podcasts are available. My thanks again to Jamie for joining us on this episode, and I hope that you all will join us again on our next episode as we continue to work together to shape the future of payments.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Jamie.